Welcome back to Vivid Box HQ. Today we're examining one of the most consequential diplomatic possibilities nobody's talking about. Saudi Arabia quietly exploring whether Iran might accept a regional non-aggression pact. What does the data actually show? Let's find out. When Donald Trump landed in Riyadh, he said what the room already knew was coming. Saudi Arabia, he promised, would soon be next to join the Abraham Accords, the normalization framework that brought the UAE and Bahrain to the table in 2020. The question hanging over every summit since, next to what? Exactly. For 3 years, the kingdom had been running two bets simultaneously. The first, a historic deal with Israel, the centerpiece of Trump's second-term foreign policy legacy. The second, far more quietly, a managed rapprochement with Tehran, brokered not in Washington or Brussels, but in Beijing. In 2023, Gaza killed the first bet. Saudi Arabia drew a line: no recognition of Israel without a Palestinian state. Not a process, not a framework, a state. The war made that condition impossible to paper over. Then June 2025 arrived. Iran's strikes on Saudi energy infrastructure during the 12-day war with Israel ended whatever remained of the second. 3 years of deliberate diplomatic construction. 2 foreclosed paths. The reset is complete, and it starts from zero. The Helsinki Accords took 3 years, 35 nations, and the permanent backdrop of nuclear annihilation to produce. That's the framework some analysts are reaching for when they describe a possible Middle East security architecture. Something multilateral, something with institutional staying power, something that sounds like history being made. The problem is that Saudi Arabia isn't building that. It never was. What Riyadh is actually doing looks nothing like a Cold War settlement. It looks like deal-making, bilateral, flexible, deliberately transactional. A defense arrangement with Pakistan here. A trade relationship with France there. A measured engagement with Beijing. Not a charter. Not a joint declaration. Not 35 signatures on anything. Analysts examining Saudi strategy find a country running parallel bilateral tracks, deliberately avoiding the constraints that come with multilateral architecture. Helsinki assumes shared institutions and obligations enforced by collective pressure. Saudi Arabia's model assumes it can manage each relationship on its own terms and walk away when conditions change. The Helsinki comparison gets the desire right: stability, reduced conflict risk, exhaustion with perpetual crisis. It gets the strategy exactly backwards. The architecture metaphor flatters everyone except the facts. The numbers out of Tehran in 2026 read less like an economic forecast and more like a slow-motion verdict. GDP is contracting, negative growth projected through 2026 and into 2027, the kind of sustained contraction that, in a country of nearly 90 million, translates into real deprivation at scale. Inflation sits near 50%, the rate that prices ordinary households out of staples within months. Power cuts shut down cities. Protests erupt, are suppressed, erupt again. And underneath all of it, oil. Iran produces over 3 million barrels a day, but exports only 3 to 1, 4 million. Roughly half of what it actually pumps. Because U.S. sanctions cut off the buyers. See that gap? Current exports at 1.3 million barrels, potential capacity near 2.4 million. That gap, at global prices, is the distance between a government that can finance itself and one that cannot. The strategic picture is worse. In December 2024, Assad fell in Syria, collapsing the land corridor that had been Iran's main artery to Hezbollah for decades. Israel had already destroyed Hezbollah's command structure in Lebanon. Hamas' leadership in Gaza eliminated. The network Iran built across 40 years has been methodically dismantled. The regime's survival instinct says, negotiate. Its hardliners say, never. Beijing called it a breakthrough. And in a narrow sense, it was. In 2023, Chinese diplomats sat Saudi Arabia and Iran across from each other and walked out with something no one else had managed: a restored diplomatic relationship between the Gulf's two great rivals after a 7-year rupture. The handshake was real. What was less real was everything after it. The 2023 deal was bilateral and narrowly constructed, a restoration of diplomatic ties, not a security framework, not a mechanism for managing the proxy conflicts and oil disputes and mutual suspicions that had caused the rupture in the first place. China's role was to provide a neutral venue and a degree of institutional prestige. Its actual leverage over what happened next was limited. The June 2025 war made this concrete. As Iranian actions threatened shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, Beijing urged restraint. China has deep economic interests in Iranian stability. It buys the bulk of Iran's sanctioned oil. But when Tehran made its military calculations, Beijing's partnership counted for less than Iran's own strategic imperatives. Analysts note that for China, stability in its relationship with the United States carries greater strategic weight than its ties with Tehran. Brokering a handshake and enforcing a peace are two different things. In 2023, China proved it could do the first. The instinct is to read a Saudi-Iran détente as good news for oil markets: lower geopolitical risk, more predictable supply, prices that track fundamentals instead of fear. The data points the opposite direction. Iran currently exports roughly 1.3 to 1.4 million barrels a day, constrained by U.S. sanctions. Meaningful sanctions relief, even partial, could unlock another 500,000 to a full million barrels onto global markets. That is new supply. New supply, absent coordinated cuts, means lower prices. Here is where the math turns on Riyadh. Since April 2025, Saudi Arabia has been unwinding its own production cuts, choosing market share gains over the price floors it spent years defending within OPEC+. That strategic shift would accelerate under a détente, not reverse. Less uncertainty about Iranian supply gives OPEC+ cover to increase production without triggering a market panic. Saudi Arabia gets higher volumes. Iran finally gets to sell. A diplomatic agreement dressed as regional stability could, in practice, function as a coordinated production increase, pressing prices down across the medium term. The irony is difficult to ignore. Everyone at the table wins geopolitically. Everyone at the pump notices. The Saudi position on Israel has never been complicated. It has been relentlessly consistent. which in diplomacy sometimes amounts to the same thing. No recognition of Israel without a Palestinian state. Not a pathway, not a process, a state based on the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital. That line has not moved. Everything around it has. Benjamin Netanyahu remains categorically opposed to a two-state solution. The Trump administration has rejected Palestinian statehood outright and gone further, criticizing countries that have moved toward formal recognition. The Abraham Accords framework, which Trump has made the centerpiece of his Middle East legacy, was built on the premise that Arab-Israeli normalization could happen without resolving the Palestinian question. Saudi Arabia is the answer to that premise. And the answer is no. The ceasefire in Gaza gave Riyadh room to restate this position rather than soften it, which means the geometric center of Trump's regional vision, Saudi Arabia signing the Abraham Accords, keeps running into the same wall. That wall has coordinates. They are the 1967 borders and East Jerusalem, and they have not moved in 50 years. The Trump administration's strategy for Iran can be summarized in two words the administration uses without apology. Maximum pressure. That meant reimposing the full sanctions campaign Trump first launched in 2018, when he pulled the United States out of the Iran nuclear deal. It meant, during the June 2025 12-day war, American airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. And it means a sustained posture that makes binding de-escalation commitments politically toxic for anyone inside Tehran's hardline power structure. This is the structural problem beneath every optimistic headline about a non-aggression pact. You cannot build a credible regional framework when the most powerful external actor in the region is running a maximum pressure campaign against one of the parties. Iran's hardliners point to American strikes as the central justification for deterrence over diplomacy. Every sanction renewal is fresh evidence that engagement leads to surrender, not stability. The Trump administration has handed Iran's hardliners their most persuasive argument. It wasn't the intention. But in geopolitics, intentions rarely travel. Consequences do. The test came in June 2025. 12 days. Iranian strikes on Israeli territory. American strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. And buried in the reporting, something that changed the Saudi calculation entirely. Iran had targeted Saudi energy infrastructure. That last detail matters more than it seems. The 2023 rapprochement had been functional because both sides calculated they had more to gain from managed coexistence than from open conflict. It was transactional, not warm, but it held until June, when Iran struck the kingdom's energy infrastructure, the economic foundation of Saudi Arabia. Whatever remained of that working relationship absorbed a direct hit. Analysts now assess that Saudi Arabia's attitude toward Iran has hardened substantially. Some reporting indicates the kingdom privately encouraged the United States to continue military action rather than pursue early de-escalation. A fragile ceasefire is currently in place, but a ceasefire is not a pact, and a pact without U.S. acceptance, without credible enforcement, without addressing the structural hostility June exposed, will not hold in energy markets, in diplomatic capitals, or in the palaces where these decisions actually get made. 3 years of diplomatic architecture. 12 days to find out how much of it was real. If you're tracking Middle East energy or geopolitics, please like and subscribe. We break down these patterns every week. Share this with someone who works in commodities or international policy. See you tomorrow.